On January 22, 1973, Justice Blackmun in Roe v. Wade stated these fateful words: "The word person, as used in the 14th Amendment, does not include the unborn." Tragically, this is what our culture has accepted about personhood. Doe v. Bolton, a ruling that appeared the same day as Roe v. Wade, was another case that contributed to the murder of millions of unborn babies. Let's take a look at the background of these cases, the true story of the women behind them, and what you can do to help stop abortion in America. So let's talk about Roe v. Wade and the woman behind it. The Jane Roe of Roe v. Wade, whose real name was Norma McCorvey, never even had an abortion herself, and she later repudiated her pro-abortion stance. When she was young, she had wanted an illegal abortion but couldn't get one, so she ended up meeting with lawyers to plan for an adoption. Her attorneys, Sarah Weddington and Linda Coffey, weren't really interested in helping her, but only getting abortion legalized. In Norma's testimony to a Senate subcommittee on January 21st, she said, "Sarah and Linda were looking for someone, anybody, to use to further their own agenda, and I was their most willing dupe." Even though Weddington had had an illegal abortion, she needed McCorvey pregnant to justify legalizing abortion. The Roe v. Wade opinion invented a so-called right to privacy, but the Constitution nowhere mentions privacy. Founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, Matt Staver, explains that 7 justices created a so-called right to abortion that isn't based on the Constitution, but rather based on their own personal opinions. Also, there's a difference between what is law and what should be law. Just because 7 justices said we must allow human genocide doesn't make this a just or right opinion. The Declaration of Independence states one of the purposes of government: to protect our unalienable, God-given right to life. In Roe, the court stated it was not going to decide the essential question of when life begins, and they even said that that essential question would have changed the outcome of the case. But with this opinion, the government did not uphold the purpose of protecting human life. It allowed the destruction of millions of unborn children. Next, let's move on to Doe v. Bolton. In Doe v. Bolton, the plaintiff, Mary Doe, whose real name was Sandra Cano, also never had an abortion, and she later fought her entire life to overturn this case that bore her name. In her testimony before a Senate Judiciary Committee in 2005, she had frustration with the American court system and said she felt like a prisoner of the case. She thought her lawyer, Margie Pitts Hames, was having her sign divorce papers, not abortion papers. She actually said, "I was a trusting person. It did not read the papers placed in front of me by my lawyer. I did not even suspect that the papers related to abortion until one afternoon when my mother and my lawyer told me that my suitcase was packed to go to a hospital, and they had scheduled an abortion for the next day." The Doe v. Bolton ruling said that the health of the mother includes physical, emotional, psychological, familial, and age-related issues when determining when to allow abortion, and Sandra said that this led to abortion on demand. Justice Henry Blackmun in Roe said abortion was primarily a medical decision, but Doe v. Bolton exception for emotional issues meant that emotions could indeed play a role in justifying an abortion. While this case dealt with the health of the mother, the health risks of abortion are staggering. Women who abort have an increased risk for mental health problems, anxiety and depression, homicide and suicide, substance abuse, and death. A study of 877,000 women, 164,000 of whom had an abortion, showed that abortion led to an 81% increased risk for mental problems. Also, abortion leads to a 6 times higher suicide rate. According to the Centers for Disease Control, between 1973 and 2014, 437 women died from abortion complications in the U.S. So what happened to McCorvey and Cano after these cases? Well, later in life, McCorvey became a Christian, reversed her stance on abortion, and publicly spoke out against abortion. A major factor in her conversion was actually a 7-year-old girl named Emily, whose mother almost aborted her. Emily helped personify abortion, and Norma ended up becoming a Christian after Emily persuaded her to go to church. In her autobiography, One by Love, Norma said that she felt so incredibly sorry for all my sins, especially for my role in legalizing abortion. Sandra Cano also became a Christian. She filed a motion for the Supreme Court to rehear her case, but the court refused her in 2006. So what can you do? We must pray that Roe v. Wade will be overturned in our lifetime. We must always remain civically responsible by praying for those in authority over us, keeping ourselves informed about legislation about the sanctity of human life, and by voting for those with mutual faith-based values. Stand and pray outside of your local abortion centers. Harness the power of social media to share videos about the deadly truth about abortion. Speak out in your churches and local spheres of influence and contact your national representatives. Every 30 seconds in the United States, one baby is murdered because of abortion. Ambrose of Milan once said, "Not only for every idle word, but for every idle silence must man render an account." Be a voice for the voiceless. Never give up the fight.